The rooster crowed before sunrise, and Amaka's heart sank. She hated that sound not because it was loud, but because it announced the beginning of another day in a life she had never chosen. Amaka, her aunt's voice tore through the cold morning air. I know you're awake. Don't pretend you can't hear me. Amaka opened her eyes and stared into the darkness. For one brief moment, she imagined waking somewhere peaceful, a home where mornings were gentle, and her name was spoken with love instead of anger. Then the smell of damp walls and kerosene pulled her back to reality. I'm coming, Auntie, she called, apologizing before she had even done anything wrong. She pushed herself from the thin mat on the floor. Her back ached from sleeping on the hard ground, and her arm still burned from the previous day's labor. But rest was a privilege her aunt never allowed. Amaka wrapped a faded cloth around her waist and hurried outside barefoot. The compound was covered in the pale gray light of dawn, the earth cold beneath her feet. Her aunt stood by the doorway with her arms folded, already searching for a reason to punish her. For years, Amaka had obeyed, endured, and remained silent because she believed she had nowhere else to go. But she did not know this would be the last morning she answered that cruel voice, or that before nightfall, the truth her family had hidden from her would change her life forever. Her lips pressed into a thin line of permanent dissatisfaction. You're slow, she snapped. I woke up as soon as... Excuses, her aunt cut in sharply. Always excuses. Do you think food cooks itself, or water walks into the house on its own? Amaka lowered her gaze immediately. I'm sorry, Auntie. Her aunt clicked her tongue. Sorry. Won't wash the plates. Go and fetch water before the sun comes out and sweep this compound properly. Yesterday it looked like a pigsty. Yes, Auntie. Amaka reached for the broom, leaning against the wall, her fingers brushing against its rough, worn handle. She began sweeping in quick, practiced motions, raising small clouds of dust that danced in the early light. From inside the house, she could hear her cousins laughing, still asleep, probably, or just waking up slowly, stretching under soft mattresses, wrapped in clean sheets. They would go to school later. She would not. A familiar ache settled quietly in her chest. By the time the sun began to rise, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and gold, Amaka had already swept the entire compound and made her way down the narrow path to the stream. The yellow jerk felt heavier with every step. Other girls her age walked along the same path, some in uniforms, their laughter light and carefree. Did you do the assignment? Yes, but I didn't understand number 3. I'll show you in class. Their voices faded into the distance, but their words lingered. Amaka swallowed. She used to go a long time ago before everything changed. Before the accident. Before the night that stole her parents and replaced her life with this one. She remembered her mother's laughter, warm and full like sunlight. She remembered her father's voice, deep and gentle, always calling her my little star. You'll be something great one day, he used to say. She used to believe him now. She wasn't sure what she was becoming. The stream was already busy when she arrived. Women chatted as they filled their buckets, their voices rising and falling in easy conversation. Amaka kept to herself, kneeling by the water as she dipped her jerkin in. The cold water splashed against her hands, sending a small shiver up her arms. Amaka. She looked up. It was Mom and Ketchy, an older woman with kind eyes and a soft smile. You're here early as usual. Amaka managed a small smile. Good morning, Ma. Mom and Ketchy shook her head gently. That your aunt? She works you too hard. Amaka said nothing. What was there to say? Mom and Ketchy sighed, then reached out and adjusted the edge of Amaka's wrapper. You're a good girl, she said softly. Don't let this life harden your heart. Amaka nodded, though her throat felt tight. Thank you, Ma. She lifted the filer, balancing it carefully as she rose to her feet. As she walked back home, her thoughts drifted again, not to school this time, but to something even more fragile. Hope. The rest of the day passed in a blur of chores. Cooking, washing, scrubbing, fetching, repeating. Her aunt's voice was never far. Amaka, did you finish washing those clothes? Amaka, the soup is burning. Amaka, are you deaf? Each call pulled her further into exhaustion. By afternoon the sun hung high and unforgiving in the sky. Sweat clung to her skin, her clothes sticking uncomfortably to her body. Still, she worked. Still, she endured. It was evening before she finally found a moment to herself. The compound had quieted. Her aunt and cousins were inside eating dinner. Amaka sat outside on a small wooden stool, her own plate resting on her lap. Plain Gary, no soup, no meat. She ate slowly, mechanically, her mind far away. Above her, the sky stretched wide and endless, dotted with stars that shimmered like tiny promises. She stared at them for a long time. They look close, she murmured softly, but they're so far. A small breeze passed through, brushing against her skin like a whisper. She closed her eyes, and for a moment, she allowed herself to dream a different life, a place where she woke up to kindness, where she wore clean clothes that belonged to her, where she laughed without fear of being silenced, where someone looked at her and saw her. Not a burden, not a servant, but a person. Valuable. Loved. Her chest tightened. "Is that too much to ask?" she whispered. No one answered. "Amaka." Her aunt's voice shattered the moment instantly. Amaka opened her eyes, reality crashing back in. "Yes, Auntie. Come and wash these plates before you go and sleep. Or do you think this is a hotel? I'm coming." She quickly finished the last of her food and stood up, brushing her hands against her wrapper. As she stepped inside, the warmth of the house greeted her, but not in comfort. Her cousins sat at the table laughing, their plates full. One of them glanced at her and smirked. "Make sure you wash mine well," she said lazily. "I don't like oil stains." Amaka nodded. "I will." She gathered the plates quietly. No arguments, no complaints, just silence. Much later that night, when everyone else had gone to sleep, Amaka returned to her small corner. She lay down on her mat, staring up at the cracked ceiling. Her body was tired, but her mind refused to rest. Tears slipped silently from the corners of her eyes, soaking into the thin fabric beneath her head. She didn't make a sound. She had learned long ago that crying loudly only brought more trouble. So, she cried quietly. Like everything else in her life. Quietly. After a while, she turned onto her side, pulling her knees close to her chest. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I just want a better life." The words hung in the darkness. Fragile, hopeful, dangerous, because hope in a life like hers could either save you or break you completely. Outside, the wind rustled softly through the trees, and somewhere in the distance, that same rooster let out a low, restless sound. Morning would come again, it always did, and when it did, Amaka would rise. She would work, she would endure because she had no choice. Not yet. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know, was that her life was already changing slowly, quietly, like seeds buried deep beneath the soil, waiting for the right moment to grow. The day began like every other, and that was exactly why Amaka didn't see it coming. The morning sun had barely risen when her aunt's voice pierced through the compound again. "Amaka, where is the water you were supposed to boil since morning?" Amaka rushed from the backyard, her hands still wet from washing clothes. I just finished fetching the second bucket, Auntie. I was about to. Her aunt snapped, stepping closer. "You are always about to do something but never actually doing it." "I'm sorry, Auntie." Her aunt scoffed loudly. "Sorry things happen faster." "Useless girl." The words landed like stones. Amaka lowered her eyes, swallowing the familiar sting. She had long stopped reacting outwardly, but inside it still hurt. It always did. "I'll boil it now," she said softly. "Go and do it before I lose my temper." Amaka hurried away, her bare feet moving quickly across the dusty ground. She knelt by the small outdoor kitchen, arranging firewood beneath the pot. The flame caught slowly crackling to life. As she stared into it, something in her chest felt unsettled. She didn't know why, but the air felt different, heavy, like something was coming. By midday, the heat had settled over the compound like a thick blanket. Amaka was inside scrubbing a pile of clothes in a large basin, her hands moving rhythmically through the soapy water. Her mind drifted, as it often did, to places far away from her current reality. She imagined herself walking through a market, not as a servant, but as someone free, buying things for herself, laughing, living Amaka. Her aunt's voice snapped her back instantly. "Yes, Auntie. Come inside now." There was something in her tone, not just irritation, something sharper. Amaka quickly rinsed her hands and wiped them on her wrapper before standing up. Her heart had started beating faster, though she didn't know why. As she stepped into the house, she noticed it immediately. There was a man sitting on one of the wooden chairs. She froze. He looked out of place, not because he was impressive, but because he wasn't. His clothes were worn, slightly dusty, like someone who had spent long hours under the sun. His slippers were old, the edges peeling. His hands rested on his knees, rough and calloused. Farmer. Amaka's gaze flickered briefly to his face. He wasn't ugly, but there was something about him, something quiet, something guarded. He wasn't looking at her. Instead, his eyes were fixed on the ground as if he didn't want to be here either. "Stand properly," her aunt barked. Amaka straightened immediately. "Yes, Auntie." Her aunt stepped forward, placing her hands firmly on her hips. "This is Emma," she said flatly. Amaka nodded slightly, her voice soft. "Good afternoon, sir." Emma lifted his head briefly and nodded once. "Good afternoon." His voice was low, calm, too calm. Silence followed, heavy, uncomfortable. Amaka shifted slightly, unsure of why she had been called inside. Her aunt didn't waste time. "You will marry him." The words dropped into the room like thunder. Amaka blinked. Once, twice. Her mind struggled to process what she had just heard. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Her aunt's expression hardened. "Don't act like you didn't hear me. I said you will marry him." The room seemed to tilt. Marry her, to him. Her eyes slowly moved toward Emma again, searching his face for something. Anything that would tell her this was a joke. But there was nothing. No amusement, no surprise, just silence. "Auntie," her voice trembled. "Now, what are you saying?" "I am saying," her aunt continued sharply, "that this man has agreed to take you as his wife." Take the word cut deeper than anything else, like she was something being handed over. Not a person, not a daughter, not even family, just something to get rid of. "I don't understand," Amaka said, her voice shaking despite her effort to stay calm. "Why? Why now?" Her aunt laughed dryly. "Why not now? Or do you think you're still a child?" "I'm not saying that." But what?" her aunt interrupted. "You think you have options?" The question hung in the air. Cruel, honest, painful. Amaka opened her mouth, then closed it because deep down she knew the answer. No, she didn't have options. "I have been feeding you for years," her aunt continued, her voice rising. "Clothing you, housing you, or have you forgotten that you are not my responsibility?" Amaka's throat tightened. "I haven't forgotten, Auntie." "Good. Then you should be grateful." Grateful. Again, that word, always that word. Her aunt gestured toward Emma. "He has a farm. It may not be much, but at least you won't starve. That is more than I owe you." Amaka's hands trembled slightly at her sides. She turned slowly toward Emma. Their eyes met properly for the first time. There was something in his gaze. Not arrogance, not pity, something else. But she couldn't read it. "Do you?" She swallowed, her voice barely steady. "Do you want this?" The question lingered between them. Emma didn't answer immediately. He looked at her, really looked at her this time, and for a brief moment, something softened in his expression. But then it was gone. "I came here for a wife," he said simply. The words were not harsh, but they weren't comforting either. They were final. Amaka felt something inside her crack. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like a fragile piece of glass breaking where no one could see it. "I won't do it." The words slipped out before she could stop them. The room went still. Her aunt's eyes widened slightly. Not in surprise, but in anger. "What did you just say?" Amaka's heart pounded violently in her chest. She had never spoken back before. Never. But something in her, something small but stubborn, refused to stay silent this time. "I said, I won't do it." Her voice shook, but she didn't take it back. Her aunt took a slow step forward, then another until she was standing directly in front of her. "You won't," she repeated softly. That softness was more dangerous than shouting. Amaka swallowed hard but held her ground. "I don't even know him, Auntie. You can't just—" The slap came fast, sharp, loud. It echoed through the room. Amaka's head snapped to the side as pain exploded across her cheek. She staggered slightly but didn't fall. Her ears rang. Her vision blurred. "Don't you dare raise your voice at me." Her aunt shouted, all pretense of calm gone after everything I've done for you. Tears filled the Maka's eyes instantly, but she blinked them back. "I'm not raising my voice," she whispered. "Then you better lower your pride," her aunt snapped. Because the only reason you are still in this house is because I allow it." Each word hit harder than the slap. "You think any man will come looking for you?" her aunt continued bitterly. "An orphan with nothing. No family, no money, no future." Amaka's chest tightened painfully. "That man," her aunt pointed at Ema, "is doing you a favor? A favor?" The word twisted like a knife. Silence fell again, this time heavier, more suffocating. Amaka slowly lifted her hand to her cheek, the sting still burning beneath her skin. Her thoughts raced. Where would she go if she refused? Who would take her in? What would she eat? Where would she sleep? The truth stood in front of her, cold and unyielding. She was trapped. Her shoulders slowly sank. The fight drained out of her, leaving behind something hollow, something tired. "When?" she asked quietly. Her aunt's expression shifted slightly, satisfaction creeping in. "Good," she said. "You're finally thinking with your head." Amaka didn't respond. "When will it happen?" she repeated. "In 2 days. 2 days." Amaka felt the ground slip beneath her feet again. "So soon. Do you want to waste more of my time?" her aunt snapped. "Or his?" Amaka shook her head faintly. "No." "Good. Then start preparing yourself. Preparing for a life she didn't choose. With a man she didn't know in a future she couldn't see." That night, Amaka sat outside again under the same sky, but everything felt different. The stars were still there, the breeze still whispered, but the comfort she once found in them was gone, replaced by a heavy, suffocating reality. In 2 days, she would be someone's wife. She wrapped her arms around herself, her body trembling slightly. "Is this my life now?" she whispered. No answer came, only silence. And somewhere in the darkness, a future she was walking into, blind, unprepared, and completely alone. The morning of Amaka's wedding arrived without celebration. No music, no laughter, no excitement, just silence. Amaka woke before the rooster crowed. For a moment, she didn't remember. She lay still on her mat, staring into the darkness, her body heavy with exhaustion. The air was cool, quiet, almost peaceful. Then it came rushing back. Today, her wedding day, her chest tightened instantly. She sat up slowly, her fingers gripping the edge of the thin mat beneath her as if it could anchor her to something real, something steady. But nothing felt steady anymore. Everything felt like it was slipping, uncontrollable, final. From outside, she could already hear movement. Her aunt's footsteps, the clinking of pots, the low murmur of voices, no joyful singing, no celebratory chatter, just routine. Like this day meant nothing, like she meant nothing. Amaka. Her aunt's voice came sharp as ever. "Come and start preparing yourself. Don't make me shout twice." Amaka closed her eyes briefly. Just 1 second. One last second of stillness. Then she stood. "Yes, Auntie." The preparation was simple, painfully simple. Her aunt handed her a folded white gown. Not new, not tailored, borrowed. Amaka ran her fingers over the fabric. It was slightly worn, the edges softened with age, but it was still beautiful in its own quiet way. "This is what you will wear," her aunt said briskly. Amaka nodded. "Thank you, Auntie." "Don't thank me," her aunt replied quickly. "Return it carefully after today. It doesn't belong to you." The words settled heavily. "It doesn't belong to you." Amaka swallowed. "Yes, Auntie." Inside the small room, she dressed slowly, carefully, almost reverently, as if each movement mattered, as if this moment was something she needed to feel fully, even if it hurt. The gown slid over her body, fitting her surprisingly well. She adjusted it gently, smoothing out the fabric with trembling hands. There was no mirror, so she used the small cracked piece of glass by the window. She lifted it slightly, angling it toward her face. For a moment, she didn't recognize herself. Her hair had been brushed back neatly. Her aunt had even allowed her to apply a small amount of powder, just enough to brighten her skin. She looked beautiful, too beautiful for a day like this. Tears welled up in her eyes, not because she was happy, but because this was not how she imagined this moment. Not like this, not empty, not forced. "I thought," she whispered softly to her reflection, "it would be different." Her voice broke. She quickly wiped her tears before they could ruin her face. There was no room for mess. Not today. When she stepped outside, a few neighbors had gathered. Not many, just enough to witness, to whisper, to judge, to pity. "Ah, she looks beautiful," one woman murmured. "It's a shame," another replied quietly. "Such a fine girl going to that kind of life." Amaka heard them. Of course she did, but she didn't react. She couldn't. Her face remained calm, still, like a mask she had learned to wear too well. Emma was already there, standing near the edge of the compound, waiting. He wore a simple outfit, a clean but plain shirt and trousers. Nothing flashy, nothing remarkable, just like the first day she saw him. Simple, quiet, unreadable. Amaka's steps slowed as her eyes settled on him. This man was about to become her husband, her entire future. And yet, he still felt like a stranger. As if sensing her gaze, Emma looked up, their eyes met. There was something different in his expression today, something softer, almost concerned. But he didn't speak, and neither did she. The ceremony was held right there in the compound. No decorated hall, no chairs arranged in rows, just a small space cleared in the center. A local elder stood between them, holding a worn book, his voice steady and practiced. "Marriage," he began, "is a union of two people." His words flowed on, but Amaka barely heard them. They sounded distant, like echoes. Her focus drifted instead to the ground beneath her feet, dry, cracked, just like everything else in her life. "Do you accept this man as your husband?" The question snapped her back. Her heart jumped for a brief second. Time seemed to freeze. This was it. The moment. The point of no return. She looked at Emma again. Really looked this time. Searching, hoping to find something, anything that would make this easier. But his face remained calm, quiet, still. He wasn't forcing her. He wasn't pleading. He was just there waiting. The silence stretched. Everyone was watching. Her aunt's gaze burned into her from the side, warning, demanding. Amaka inhaled slowly. Her voice came out softer than she expected. "Yes." The word felt heavy as it left her lips, like it carried everything she was losing with it. "I accept. And do you accept this woman as your wife?" "Yes." Emma's answer came quickly, firm, certain. Amacha's chest tightened slightly at the contrast. "That is enough," the elder said. "You are now husband and wife. Just like that. No applause, no celebration, no joy. Only quiet murmurs and the weight of a life sealed in a few simple words." Her aunt stepped forward immediately, clapping her hands once. "Good. It is done. Done." As if it were a transaction. A task completed. She turned to Emma. "Take her and make sure she behaves well. I don't want to hear any complaints." Amaka flinched slightly at the words. Emma nodded once. "I understand." Her aunt turned to Amaka next. "Go and bring your things." "Things?" Amaka almost laughed. "What things?" She owned almost nothing. Still, she went inside. Her belongings fit into a small worn bag. A few clothes, a wrapper, pair of slippers. That was all. She looked around the room one last time. This place, it was never kind to her, never warm, never loving, but it was familiar. It was what she knew. And now she was leaving it behind. Her fingers tightened slightly around the bag. "Goodbye," she whispered softly. Not to the room, but to the girl she used to be. When she stepped outside again, everything felt final. Emma stood beside an old motorcycle. That was how they would leave. No car, no procession, just the two of them. Her aunt didn't hug her, didn't bless her, didn't say, "Take care." She simply waved her off like someone dismissing a chore. "Go well," she said flatly. Amaka nodded. "Thank you, Auntie. Even now," she said. "Thank you." She climbed onto the back of the motorcycle slowly, carefully holding onto her small bag. For a moment, she hesitated. Her eyes drifted back toward the house. This was her last chance to look, to feel something, but there was nothing to hold on to. No love, no warmth, no reason to stay. She turned away. The engine started with a rough sound. Then they were moving out of the compound down the dusty road, away from everything she had ever known. The wind brushed against her face. Her hands rested uncertainly at her sides. She didn't hold on to him. Not yet. The road stretched ahead, long and unfamiliar. Villagers watched as they passed. Some whispered, some stared, some simply shook their heads. Such a quiet wedding. No joy at all. God help her. Amaka kept her eyes forward. She refused to cry. Not here. Not where everyone could see. The village slowly faded behind them. The familiar paths disappeared, replaced by open land, fields, trees, silence. The farther they went, the quieter everything became, until it was just the sound of the motorcycle and the thoughts in her head. After a while, Emma spoke. "You can hold on to me if you need to." His voice was calm, gentle, not commanding, just offering. Amaka hesitated. Then slowly, she reached forward, her fingers lightly gripping the edge of his shirt, careful, distant, as if unsure of what this connection meant. They rode in silence for a long time. The sun began to lower in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over the land. It should have been beautiful, but Amaka couldn't feel it. Her heart was too full, too heavy. Finally, the motorcycle slowed, then stopped. "We're here," Emma said. Amaka looked up. In front of them stood a small mud house. Simple, quiet, lonely, her new home. She stared at it for a long moment, her emotions tangled and unclear. This was it. No going back, no changing it. Just this. She climbed down slowly. Her feet touched the ground, and something inside her shifted. Not hope. Not yet, but something else. Something uncertain. Something waiting. She turned to Emma. He was watching her. Not with expectation. Not with pressure. Just watching as if he understood this moment mattered. Amaka took a small breath, then another, and stepped forward into the life she never chose, into the future she didn't understand, into a story that had only just begun. The first thing Amaka noticed about the house was the silence. Not the heavy, suffocating silence she was used to, the kind that came before shouting or punishment. No, the silence was different. It was calm, uninterrupted, almost strange. She stood a few steps away from the mud house, her small bag still clutched tightly in her hand. The evening sun cast a soft golden glow over everything, stretching long shadows across the ground. The house itself was simple, a single-story mud structure with a slightly slanted zinc roof. The walls were smooth but unpainted, the color of dried earth. There was a small wooden door and a window with no glass, just open space covered by a thin curtain. Beside the house, a small farm stretched outward, rows of crops, neatly arranged, well, cared for. Amaka noticed that immediately her aunt's compound had always been busy, but never organized like this. Here, everything looked intentional, maintained, alive. "You can go in," Emma said. His voice broke her thoughts gently. Amaka turned slightly toward him. "Okay." She walked toward the door slowly, her steps cautious, like someone entering a place that might reject her. She pushed the door open, creaked softly. Inside, the space was small but surprisingly clean. There was a wooden table with 2 chairs, a small shelf with neatly arranged items, a mat rolled up in the corner, and a bed. Amaka paused at the sight of it. A real bed, not luxurious, not large, but clean, neatly made, with an actual mattress. For a moment, she simply stared. Then she blinked quickly, as if afraid the image might disappear. "You can put your things there," Emma said from behind her. She turned. He stood at the doorway, not entering fully, as if giving her space. Amaka nodded and walked toward the bed, placing her small bag gently on it. Her fingers lingered on the edge of the mattress, soft, not like the hard floor she was used to. Something inside her chest tightened. Not from pain this time, from something unfamiliar. "I'll bring water," Emma said. Amaka looked up. "You don't have to. It's fine," he replied simply. Then he stepped away. She was alone, truly alone, in a new place, in a new life. Amaka slowly walked around the room, her eyes taking in every detail. Nothing here was extravagant, but nothing felt neglected either. Even the smallest things, the arrangement of the shelf, the way the floor had been swept clean, the careful folding of the bedding spoke of quiet effort care. She reached out and touched the table lightly. "This is his life," she murmured. Her life now, too. The thought settled uneasily in her chest. A few minutes later, Amma returned carrying a bucket of water. He placed it near the corner. "You can wash up if you want," he said. Amaka nodded. "Thank you." There was a brief pause. Neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. It was strange. Two people bound together by marriage, yet standing like strangers in the same room. "I'll be outside," Emma said. After a moment, Amaka looked at him. "Okay." He stepped out again, leaving her space again. Amaka frowned slightly. That was unexpected. At her aunt's house, privacy didn't exist. There was always someone watching, correcting, demanding. Here, he was stepping away on purpose. She slowly bent down and scooped some water into a small bowl. The coolness against her skin made her shiver slightly as she washed her face and arms. The dust of the journey melted away, but the heaviness inside her remained. When she finished, she sat on the edge of the bed, still unsure, still adjusting. Outside, she could hear faint sounds, movement, tools. Curious, she stood and walked toward the doorway. Emma was in the small farm beside the house, working even now. His movements were steady, practiced. He handled the soil with familiarity, like someone who had done this for years. Amaka leaned lightly against the doorframe, watching him. Something about it felt grounding, real, not forced, not performed, just honest work. After a while, he noticed her. He straightened slightly. "You're done." "Yes." He nodded once. "Good." Another pause. Then he walked toward her. Amaka instinctively stood up straight. "You must be tired," he said. "I'm okay. You've had a long day." She hesitated, then admitted softly. "Yes. I made some food earlier." He said, "It's not much." Amaka blinked. "You cooked?" "Yes." Her surprise was obvious. At her aunt's house, men didn't cook. They ate, they complained, they demanded, but they didn't cook. Emma seemed to notice her reaction. "I live alone," he said simply. "So, I do what I have to do." Amaka nodded slowly. "That makes sense." They sat at the small table together. The meal was simple. Rice stew, but it smelled good. Fresh. Amaka hesitated before eating, her hands resting in her lap. "Eat," Emma said. She looked up slightly. I will." She picked up the spoon carefully and took a small bite. Her eyes widened slightly. It was good. Really good. "You like it?" he asked. She nodded quickly. "Yes." He gave a small nod in return and began eating as well. They ate mostly in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable, just quiet, different from the tense, watchful silence she was used to. This one felt neutral, safe almost. After the meal, Amaka instinctively reached for the plates. "I'll wash them," she said. "You don't have to do it now," Emma replied. "It's fine," she said quickly. "I'll do it." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Okay." She washed the plates outside under the fading light of evening. The sky had deepened into shades of orange and purple, slowly giving way tonight. As she worked, her thoughts drifted again. Everything felt not in a bad way, just unfamiliar, too calm, too easy, too kind, and that made her uneasy. When she returned inside, the bed had been adjusted. A thin cloth placed neatly, pillow added. Amaka paused. "You did this." Emma looked up from where he sat. "Yes, you didn't have to. I know." The simplicity of his answer caught her off guard. Night settled fully. The small house was lit by a dim lantern. Shadows danced softly along the walls. Amaka stood near the bed, unsure of what came next. Her heart began to beat faster again. This was what she feared. Marriage, sharing space, sharing everything. She clasped her hands together nervously. "I can sleep on the floor," she said quickly. Emma looked at her. "Why?" "I'm used to it," she replied. "It's fine." He shook his head. "No." She blinked. "No, you'll sleep on the bed." "And you?" "I'll sleep outside." Amaka's eyes widened slightly. "Outside?" "Yes, that's not necessary." "It's fine," he repeated. There was no force in his voice, just quiet certainty. Amaka didn't know what to say. This was not what she expected. "Not at all." "Thank you," she said softly. He nodded once, then stood and walked toward the door. "Rest," he said. "You need it." And just like that, he stepped outside. Amaka stood there for a long moment, still processing. Then slowly she sat on the bed. The mattress dipped slightly beneath her weight. Soft, comforting. She lay back carefully, her body tensed at first and used to the feeling, but slowly, very slowly, she relaxed. Her eyes stared up at the ceiling, The same cracked patterns, but somehow they didn't feel as heavy, outside. She could hear the faint sound of crickets. The night was alive in a quiet, peaceful way, not threatening, not harsh, just there. Amaka turned slightly onto her side, pulling the thin cloth over herself. Her thoughts were still racing. He didn't shout. He didn't demand. He didn't treat her like a burden. He cooked. He gave her space. He let her rest. Who was this man? Her voice came out in a whisper. You don't have to do everything. She remembered his words from earlier. Her lips parted slightly. Then she whispered back into the quiet room. That's all I know how to do. For the first time in a long time. Sleep came easily. No fear, no tension, no waiting for the next shout. Just rest. And outside, under the same sky filled with quiet stars, Emma sat awake, watching the house, silent, guarded, as if protecting something fragile, something new, something he wasn't quite ready to name yet. Inside that small mud house, two strangers slept under the same roof, bound by a marriage neither fully understood. One carrying years of pain, the other carrying secrets yet to be revealed, and between them a beginning, quiet, uncertain, but alive. The second morning in Eka's house felt unfamiliar, not because anything was wrong, but because nothing was. Amaka woke up to silence. No shouting, no banging of pots, no voice tearing through her name like a command, just quiet. For a moment she lay still on the bed, her eyes half open, her mind floating in that soft space between sleep and awareness. Then it hit her. She wasn't in her aunt's house anymore. Her body stiffened slightly. She sat up quickly, her heart racing out of instinct rather than necessity. The room looked the same as it had the night before. Simple, clean, undisturbed. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. She glanced toward the door. It was slightly open. Light from the early morning sun slipped through, casting a soft glow across the floor. She could hear faint movement outside. Quiet, controlled, not rushed, not chaotic, just steady. Amaka swung her legs off the bed and stood. Her body braced itself automatically for the day ahead, for orders, for criticism, for pressure, but none came. She stepped outside slowly. Emma was already awake. Of course he was. He stood near the small farm, bending slightly as he worked the soil. His movements were calm and deliberate, his attention fully focused. He didn't look up immediately. He didn't call her. He didn't say anything at all. Amaka stood by the doorway for a moment, unsure of what to do with herself. That uncertainty felt strange. At her aunt's house, she always knew what to do. Work, move, obey. Here, no one had told her anything. Good morning, Emma said suddenly, still focused on his work. Amaka blinked, slightly startled. Good morning. Her voice sounded smaller than she intended. He straightened, wiping his hands lightly against his trousers before turning toward her. You slept well. The question caught her off guard. No one had asked her that in years. She hesitated, then answered honestly. Yes. A small pause. I did. He nodded once. That's good. Silence followed, but not the heavy kind. Just space. Amaka shifted slightly. I'll start preparing breakfast, she said quickly. She needed something to do. Something familiar. Something that made sense. You don't have to rush. Emma replied. I'm not rushing. You are. Amaka froze slightly. He wasn't accusing. He wasn't angry. He was just observing, and somehow that made her more uncomfortable. I'm used to it, she said quietly. He studied her for a moment, then nodded. All right. Inside the small kitchen space, Amaka moved quickly, too quickly. Her hands worked with practiced efficiency, lighting the fire, arranging the pot, measuring ingredients without hesitation. But her mind was elsewhere. Why wasn't he telling her what to do? Why wasn't he correcting her? Why wasn't he acting like every other man she had seen? By the time she finished cooking, Emma had already returned from the farm. He washed his hands and sat at the table without a word. Amaka placed the food in front of him carefully. Thank you, he said. She paused just for a second, then nodded. You're welcome. They ate together again and again in silence. But this time, the silence felt different. Amaka's mind was louder, watching, observing, questioning. She noticed the way he ate, not greedily, not carelessly, just normally. She noticed how he didn't complain about the food, didn't criticize, didn't demand more. He simply ate. And when he was done, he pushed the plate aside gently. That was good. Amaka blinked. You like it? Yes. Another small pause. Thank you. Her chest tightened slightly. There it was again. That word. Thank you. It didn't belong in her world. Not like this. Not directed at her. After breakfast, she quickly began gathering the plates. I'll wash them, she said. I can help, Emma replied. Amaka almost dropped the plate. No. The word came out too fast, too sharp. Both of them paused. Amaka swallowed quickly. I mean, it's okay, I'll do it. Emma watched her for a moment, then nodded slowly. All right. Outside. As she washed the plates, her hands moved automatically, but her thoughts spiraled. This wasn't normal. None of this was normal. A man who didn't shout, who didn't demand, who didn't act like she owed him her existence. It didn't make sense. And things that didn't make sense were dangerous. The days that followed only made it worse. Emma never raised his voice, not once. Even when she made mistakes. Even when she burned the food slightly. Even when she accidentally broke a small clay bowl. I'm sorry, she said quickly, her heart pounding. It's all right, he replied calmly. It was your bowl. It's just a bowl. Just a bowl. At her aunt's house, that would have meant punishment. Harsh words, maybe worse. But here, nothing. He worked hard every day from morning till evening on the farm in the sun without complaint. Amaka watched him sometimes from a distance. His movements were steady, disciplined, almost calculated, like someone who wasn't just farming, but doing something more. And then there were the other things, small things, strange things. One afternoon, while sweeping the compound, Amaka noticed a man walking past the farm, well-dressed, too well-dressed for the area. His shoes were polished, his clothes crisp, his posture confident. He slowed slightly as he approached. Then he greeted Emma. Good afternoon, sir. Sir. Amaka's hand paused mid-weep. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Emma nodded. Good afternoon. The man didn't linger. He continued walking, but Amaka couldn't ignore what she had just heard. Sir, that evening, she brought it up casually. That man who passed today? Emma looked up briefly. Yes, he greeted you differently. How? Amaka hesitated. Like you were important. Emma shrugged slightly. Maybe he was just being respectful. Amaka frowned. People don't usually greet farmers like that. He gave a small smile. Maybe I'm different. That answer didn't sit right. Not at all. Another day, another moment. Amaka was returning from the small stream nearby when she saw it. A car parked far from the house. Not just any car. A luxury car. Shiny, expensive, completely out of place. Her steps slowed. Her heart began to beat faster. Who would bring something like that here? She glanced around. No one else seemed to notice or care. She hurried back home. Amaka, she called. He stepped out from the side of the house. Yes, there's a car down the road. He didn't react, not surprised, not curious, just calm. I know. Amaka blinked. You know? Yes. Whose is it? He paused, then said simply, It's nothing you need to worry about. That was it. No explanation, no detail, nothing. Amaka stared at him. Something inside her shifted. Not fear, not yet, but something close. You always say that, she said quietly. He tilted his head slightly. Say what? That I shouldn't worry. He looked at her for a moment, then said, Because you don't need to. That night, Amaka couldn't sleep. She lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling again. But this time, her mind was restless, racing, connecting things, breaking them apart, putting them back together again. A man who lives like a poor farmer, but is greeted like someone important. A man who has no visible wealth, but doesn't seem worried about money. A man who is kind, too controlled, too intentional. Her fingers tightened slightly around the edge of the cloth. Who are you? She whispered into the darkness. Outside, Emma sat again under the night sky, silent, still watching. Inside, Amaka turned onto her side, her eyes finally closing slowly. But even in sleep, her mind didn't rest, because something had already taken root. A question, a doubt, a quiet, growing suspicion. and like a seed buried deep in the soil, it was only a matter of time before it began to grow. The first time Amaka went looking for answers, she didn't even realize she was doing it. It started with silence. Not the peaceful kind she had grown used to in Echa's house, but the kind that felt watchful, like something hidden was breathing quietly beneath the surface. That morning, Emma had left earlier than usual. Before sunrise, before even the birds began their soft morning calls, Amaka woke to the faint sound of movement, footsteps, the low creak of the door, the subtle shift of presence leaving a space. Her eyes opened slowly. By the time she sat up, he was gone. That was new. Emma never left without saying something. Even if it was just, "I'll be on the farm or rest." Simple words, but consistent. Today, nothing. Amaka sat on the bed for a long moment, her brows slightly drawn together. "Where did he go so early?" she murmured. Her voice sounded louder than usual in the quiet room. She stood slowly and stepped outside. The early morning air was cool, the sky still painted in shades of gray and soft blue. The farm lay ahead, still and untouched. No movement, no sign of him. A strange feeling crept into her chest. Not fear, not yet, but something close. Uncertainty. She went about her usual routine, washing, sweeping, preparing food. But her focus wasn't in her hands, it was in her thoughts. Everything she had noticed over the past few days came rushing back. The respectful greetings, the expensive car, the calm, controlled way Emma handled everything. Nothing about him matched the life he appeared to live. Nothing. By mid-morning, she couldn't ignore it anymore. Something wasn't right, and she needed to know what. It wasn't curiosity anymore. It was necessity. Amaka wiped her hands on her wrapper and stood still in the middle of the room. Her eyes slowly moved around the space. The table, the shelf, the bed, everything looked the same. Simple, ordinary. But now she wasn't sure she believed that anymore. Her heart began to beat faster. "You're overthinking," she whispered to herself. But the words felt weak, unconvincing. Her gaze drifted toward the small wooden shelf. She had never really looked at it closely before, not properly. It held a few items, bowls, a folded cloth, a small container, nothing unusual. But today, everything felt like it could be hiding something. Her feet moved before her mind fully decided. Slow steps, careful, almost guilty. She reached the shelf and hesitated. Her fingers hovered slightly. "Don't do this," she whispered under her breath, but something inside her pushed back. "You need to know." Slowly she began to check. She lifted the folded cloth. Nothing, just fabric. She opened the small container. Empty. Her breath came out slowly. "See?" she murmured. "There's nothing." She almost stopped. Almost. But then her eyes shifted toward the bed. Amaka froze. Her heart skipped, then started again faster. "No," she whispered, but her feet were already moving. She approached the bed slowly. Each step felt louder than it should, as if the ground itself was warning her. She knelt down. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the edge of the mattress. "This is wrong," she murmured. But she didn't stop. She lifted it. First, nothing. Just the wooden frame beneath. Her breath hitched. Relief began to settle. Then she saw it tucked neatly underneath. Hidden, deliberate. A phone. Not just any phone. A sleek, modern device. Shiny, expensive, completely out of place. Amaka stared at it. Her entire body went still. Slowly, very slowly, she reached out and picked it up. Felt different in her hand. Smooth, heavy. Not like the small, basic phones she had seen in the village. This was something else entirely. Her mind raced. Farmer would not have this. Not here. Not hidden like this. Why would he hide it? She whispered. Her thumb hovered over the screen, then pressed. It lit up instantly. Bright, clear, alive. Amaka's breath caught. The screen displayed messages, notifications, names she didn't recognize. But the format, the language, the structure, everything about it screamed one thing. Wealth, power, importance. Her heart began to pound harder, louder, almost painfully. This wasn't just strange anymore. This was something else. Something bigger. Her fingers trembled as she quickly turned the phone off, as if it might expose her just by being on. She placed it back exactly where she found it. Carefully, precisely. Then she lowered the mattress. Slowly, Quietly, her hands dropped to her sides, but her body didn't move. Her mind was spinning. A man who lives like a poor farmer, but owns a phone like that. A man who is greeted with respect by strangers. A man who doesn't worry about money. A man who hides things. Her chest tightened. "Who are you?" she whispered again, but this time it wasn't soft. It wasn't curious. It was shaken. Outside, she heard footsteps. Amaka's head snapped toward the door. Her heart jumped violently. It was back. Panic surged through her instantly. She looked around quickly. Everything looked normal. Nothing out of place. Good. She forced herself to breathe in. By the time Emma stepped inside, she was standing near the table, trying to look calm, trying to look like she hadn't just uncovered something that changed everything. "You're awake," he said. "I've been up for a while." Her voice sounded almost normal. Almost. He nodded and set something down on the table. A small bag. "I brought some things from the market," he said. Amaka stared at the bag, then at him. "Market?" Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You went to the market?" "Yes." "So early?" "Yes." The answers were simple. Too simple. She stepped closer slowly. "EA." He looked at her calm as always. Her heart pounded in her chest. Now this was the moment she swallowed hard. "Who are you?" The question landed between them, heavy, sharp, unavoidable. For the first time since she had known him, Emma didn't respond immediately. He just looked at her. And in that silence, everything changed. Because this time, he didn't smile. And Amaka knew without a doubt. She had just stepped into something far bigger than she was prepared for. The silence after Amaka's question felt different. Not empty, not calm, but charged. "Who are you?" The words still hung between them, heavy and unrelenting. Amaka stood still, her hands slightly clenched at her sides, her chest rising and falling with controlled breaths. Emma didn't answer, not immediately. He just looked at her, and for the first time since she had known him, there was no softness in his expression. No quiet calm, just something guarded, something calculating. "I asked you a question," Amaka said again, her voice steadier now, though her heart was pounding wildly inside her chest. Still silence. Before Emma could respond, a sound cut through the air, distant at first, low, like a vibration. Amaka's brows furrowed. "What is that?" The sound grew louder, closer, engines, multiple. Emma's gaze shifted briefly toward the door, and that alone made Amaka's stomach drop. He knew within seconds the quiet village air was broken completely by the rumble of approaching vehicles. Heavy, powerful, out of place. Amaka moved instinctively toward the doorway, and then she saw them convoy black SUVs, at least 4 of them, shiny, intimidating, completely foreign to this small, quiet environment. Dust rose behind them as they rolled into view, the sound of their engines echoing through the stillness of the land. Villagers began to emerge from their homes almost immediately. Whispers spread like wildfire. "What is this? Who are they? Why are they here?" Amaka's heart began to race fast. Too fast. The vehicles came to a stop not far from the house. Doors opened almost in unison, and then men stepped out dressed in black suits, dark sunglasses, clean, sharp, powerful. They didn't look like they belonged here. They didn't look like they belonged anywhere near this life. Amaka's breath caught in her throat. Her fingers tightened slightly against the wooden frame of the door. "What is going on?" she whispered. Behind her, Emma stepped forward. Calm. Too calm. The men began walking, not randomly, not uncertainly, but with purpose. Straight toward the house. Amaka pulse thundered in her ears. Each step they took felt like a countdown, like something inevitable was unfolding right in front of her. They stopped a few feet away. One of them, taller than the others, stepped forward slightly. Then he removed his sunglasses and bowed his head slightly, respectfully. "Sir?" The word hit Amaka like a physical force. Her eyes widened slowly, almost painfully. "Sir." Her gaze snapped toward Emma. Her mind struggled to process what she had just heard, but Ema didn't react. Not with surprise, not with confusion, not with denial. He simply nodded. "Why are you here?" he asked calmly. The man straightened. "We've been looking for you," he said. "It's time." "Time?" Amaka's heart dropped. "Time for what?" Her breathing became uneven. Shallow. Another man stepped forward slightly. We didn't expect to find you here for this long, he said carefully. But everything is ready now. Amaka turned fully toward Emma, her eyes searching his face desperately. Emma, what are they talking about? He didn't answer her. Instead, he looked at the men again. You shouldn't have come here like this, he said. There was no other choice. The first man replied. Things are moving quickly. The board is asking questions. Board. That word didn't belong here. Not in this village. Not in this life. Amaka felt her knees weaken slightly. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Emma. This time he looked at her, and something in his expression changed. Not fully, but enough. Regret. That was it. A slow, sinking realization began to spread through her chest. Cold, heavy, unavoidable. Tell me what is going on, she said, her voice trembling now despite her effort to hold it together. Before he could respond, the first man turned slightly toward her. Ma'am, he said respectfully. We've been looking for you too. Amaka blinked, confused, disoriented. Me? Yes. Her heart skipped, then slammed harder against her chest. I don't understand. You are his wife. The man continued. The words echoed. His wife. Amaka's breath caught. The man continued, his tone careful but firm. Which means you are also part of this situation now. What situation? She asked, her voice breaking slightly. Silence. Then she turned back to Emma. This time there was no hesitation, no fear, no holding back. Tell me the truth. Her voice was stronger now, sharpened by everything she had just seen, everything she had just heard. Right now, the air between them tightened. The villagers in the distance watched, whispered, speculated, but none of that mattered anymore because in that moment, it was just the two of them and the truth standing between them. Emma exhaled slowly. For a brief second, his eyes closed as if he was finally accepting something he had been avoiding. Then he opened them, and when he spoke, his voice was no longer just calm. It was honest. My name, he began, is not just Emma. Amaka felt her entire world tilt. Everything inside her went still. The wind, the voices, the movement around her, all of it faded. All that remained was his voice. I am the owner of one of the largest companies in this country, he continued. Her breath left her body completely. A company? She repeated faintly. Yes. Her head shook slowly. No. Her eyes searched his face again, desperate, hoping this was some kind of mistake, some kind of misunderstanding. You're lying, she whispered. But even as she said it, she knew. The cars, the men, the respect, the phone. It all made sense now. Too much sense. I'm not lying, he said quietly. Amaka staggered back a step. Her hand flew to her mouth. You're... She struggled to form the words. You're rich, he didn't answer immediately. I am more than that, he said finally. Her chest tightened painfully. So everything, her voice broke. Everything was a lie. No. The answer came quickly, firmly, but it wasn't enough. Then what is the truth? She cried. Her emotions spilled over now. No more control. No more restraint. What is real, Emma? She demanded. Because I don't know anymore. The men stood quietly behind him, watching, waiting, but Emma's focus was only on her. This, he said softly, was real, her eyes filled with tears. Don't say that, she whispered. Don't say that like it fixes anything. He took a step toward her. I didn't come here to deceive you, he said. Then why didn't you tell me? She shot back immediately. He stopped. Because he didn't have a simple answer. I needed to be sure, he said finally. Sure of what? His voice lowered. That someone could see me without everything else. Amaka stared at him. Hurt, anger, confusion, all colliding at once. So I was a test? She asked, her voice barely holding together. His expression tightened. No, but even that answer felt complicated, and she could see it. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. Everything she thought she understood, everything she thought she was building had just been ripped apart. You should have told me, she said, her voice breaking completely now. I know. Too late. Far too late. The truth had arrived. Not gently, not carefully, but like a storm, and nothing would ever be the same again. The world did not end when the truth came out. It didn't shatter into pieces. The sky didn't fall. The ground didn't split open, but to Amaka felt like it had. She stood there unmoving, her eyes locked on Emma as if looking away would make everything worse or more real. She wasn't sure which one she feared more. "You are a billionaire." The words came out slowly, uncertainly, as though she was testing how they felt in her mouth. Yes, such a simple answer, too simple, too calm. Amaka let out a soft, broken laugh, not out of amusement, but disbelief. "So all this?" She gestured weakly around the house. "The farm, the quiet life. This is what a game?" "No." His answer came quickly, firmly, but she shook her head. "Then what is it?" she demanded, her voice rising again. "Because I don't understand anything anymore." The men in suits stood at a respectful distance, but their presence pressed in on her, watching, listening, witnessing something deeply personal. "I need space," Amaka said suddenly, her voice shaking. Emma nodded immediately. "To the men," he said quietly. "Wait by the cars." They didn't argue, didn't question. They simply turned and walked away, their polished shoes crunching softly against the dry ground. The moment they were gone, the silence returned, but it was no longer peaceful. It was raw. Amaka wrapped her arms tightly around herself, as though trying to hold her body together, because inside everything felt like it was coming apart. "You lied to me," she said. This time her voice was softer, but it cut deeper. Amaka didn't deny it. "I didn't tell you the truth," he said. "That's the same thing," she replied immediately. He didn't argue because she was right. Amaka turned away from him, pacing a few steps before stopping again. Her mind was racing. Pieces of everything she had experienced over the past days began to rearrange themselves. The phone, the car, the way people greeted him, the way he never worried, never struggled, never complained. It had all been there right in front of her, and she hadn't seen it. "I feel like a fool," she whispered. "You're not a fool." "Then what am I?" she snapped, turning back to him. "Because I married a man I thought was struggling, only to find out he's living a completely different life." Her chest rose sharply. "You let me believe it," she continued, her voice trembling. "You let me think we were the same." Emma took a slow step closer. "We were the same," he said quietly. "No," she shook her head. "We weren't." He stopped because the pain in her voice was undeniable. "You had a choice," she continued. "You chose this life." Her voice dropped. "I didn't." That landed hard. For a moment neither of them spoke. The wind moved softly through the farm, rustling the leaves as if trying to fill the silence. Finally, Emma exhaled slowly. "There's something you need to understand," he said. Amaka didn't respond, but she didn't walk away either. "So," he continued, "I wasn't always like this," he said, her brows furrowed slightly. "I didn't grow up with wealth," he went on. "Everything I have now, I built it." She listened despite herself. "Years of work," he continued, "sacrifice, trusting the wrong people, losing things, gaining them again." His voice was steady, but there was something underneath it, something tired. "I thought success would make everything better," he admitted. Amacha's gaze softened slightly, just slightly, but it didn't, he said. "Pause. It made things complicated." She frowned faintly. "How?" He let out a quiet breath. "People changed," he said. "Or maybe I just started seeing them clearly." His eyes met hers again. Everyone wanted something. There was no bitterness in his tone, just truth. "Partnerships that weren't real," he continued. "Friendships built on convenience. Relationships," he paused briefly, "built on expectation." Amaka's chest tightened slightly. "I got tired." He said she believed that part. She could hear it, feel it. "So I stepped away." Her brows furrowed deeper. "You left everything?" "Yes, just like that. Not completely," he replied. "But enough." He gestured slightly around them. "I came here." Amaka looked around the small farm, the house, the life she had been living for days. "You chose this?" she asked quietly. "Yes." There was no hesitation in his answer. "Why?" His gaze held hers. "Because I wanted something real." The words lingered, and for a moment, Amaka didn't know how to respond. "You think this is real?" she asked finally. "I know it is," he said. She shook her head slowly. "You were pretending," she said. "I was hiding," he corrected gently. That's not better. No, he admitted. It's not. Another pause. The air between them felt thick with everything unsaid. And me? She asked. Her voice was quieter now, more vulnerable. Where do I fit into all of this? Amaka didn't look away. You weren't part of the plan, he said. That hurt. She felt it instantly. I wasn't planning to meet anyone. He continued quickly. I wasn't looking for a relationship, yet you married me, she said. Yes. Why? That question lingered longer than the others. Because this time the answer mattered more. Emma took a slow breath. Because you were different, he said. Amaka's eyes flickered slightly. You didn't ask for anything, he continued. You didn't expect anything. You didn't treat me like I was something to gain from. She swallowed. You just existed, he said softly. The simplicity of that statement hit her harder than she expected. And that mattered to you? She asked. It mattered more than you think. Silence settled again. But this time, it wasn't as sharp. Amaka looked down at her hands, then back at him. So, what now? She asked. The question carried everything. Her confusion, her fear, her uncertainty. Emma glanced briefly toward the distant vehicles, then back at her. They want me to return, he said. To that life? Yes. Amaka's chest tightened. And you? She asked. Do you want to go? He didn't answer immediately, because the truth was complicated. I don't know, he admitted. That honesty surprised her. She studied him for a long moment, really studied him, not the farmer, not the billionaire, just the man. And for the first time, she saw something clearly. He wasn't as in control as he seemed. He was standing at a crossroads too. Just like her. Amaka let out a slow breath. This is too much, she said quietly. I know. I need time. You'll have it. She nodded faintly, then turned away again, walking slowly toward the house. Her steps were unsteady. Not physically, but emotionally. Everything she thought she understood had changed. But one thing remained. The man she had lived with, the man who had shown her kindness, the man who had given her space, respect, and quiet care was real, even if everything else wasn't. And somehow that made everything harder. Because now she didn't know what to believe or who she was really married to, the poor farmer or the billionaire behind the dust. The house felt different that night. Not because anything had changed physically, the same walls, the same bed, the same quiet air, but everything felt unfamiliar. Amaka sat at the edge of the bed, her hands resting on her lap, her fingers loosely intertwined. Her body was still, too, like if she moved too much, everything she had been holding inside would spill out all at once. Outside, the faint sound of crickets filled the night. The same sound that had once brought her comfort, now felt distant, disconnected. She hadn't spoken much since the conversation earlier, since the truth, since everything she thought she understood had shifted beneath her feet. A billionaire, her husband, the same man who had sat quietly at the table with her, who had worked the soil with his bare hands, who had let her sleep on the bed while he stayed outside. It didn't make sense, and yet it made too much sense. Her chest tightened. You lie to me, she whispered the words again, not because she needed to say them, but because she needed to feel them to remind herself that what she was feeling was real. A soft knock came at the door. Amaka didn't respond. The door opened slightly. Emma stepped inside. He paused when he saw her, sitting exactly the same way, unmoving, silent. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. He had faced boardrooms, negotiations, high-stakes decisions that involved millions. But this felt harder. Have you eaten? He asked quietly. The question felt almost misplaced. Amaka let out a soft, humorless breath. Is that what you think matters right now? His expression tightened slightly. No, he admitted. Silence followed. He stepped further into the room, closing the door gently behind him. Amaka didn't look at him. She kept her gaze fixed on the floor. I don't know what to say to you, she said finally. Her voice was low, tired. That makes two of us, he replied. That almost made her laugh. Almost. But the feeling died before it could form. Another silence. He took a step closer, then stopped. Not too close. Not too far. I never wanted to hurt you, he said. Amaka closed her eyes briefly. That doesn't change the fact that you did. The words were soft but final. I know. She opened her eyes again. Do you? She asked. Now she looked at him fully. Do you really understand what this feels like? She continued. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The weight behind it was enough. I married you thinking we were building something together, she said. Something simple. Something honest. Her chest rose slightly. But now I don't even know what was real. It was real, he said quickly. Stop saying that, she snapped. The sharpness in her voice cut through the room. Don't say that like it fixes everything, she continued. Because it doesn't. He fell silent. Because she was right. Amaka stood up suddenly. The movement was abrupt, uncontrolled. She began pacing slowly across the room. You let me believe you were struggling, she said. You let me think we were the same. Her voice broke slightly on the last word. We weren't, she said, shaking her head. You had power. You had money. You had a whole life you kept hidden from me. She turned to face him again. I had nothing that hit him hard. You still don't understand, she said, her voice trembling now. When you have nothing, truth is the only thing you hold on to. Her eyes filled with tears, and you took that away from me. The room went still. Eka didn't move, didn't interrupt because there was nothing he could say that would undo that. I trusted you, she whispered. That word lingered longer than anything else. Trusted. I trusted the way you spoke to me, she continued. The way you treated me, the way you looked at me. Her voice cracked. And now I don't know if any of it was real. It was, he said again, but this time his voice wasn't firm. It wasn't confident. It was almost pleading. Amaka shook her head slowly. You don't get to decide that, she said. Silence. Heavy. Unforgiving. Emma ran a hand over his face briefly. For the first time, he looked unsettled. I should have told you, he said. Yes, she replied immediately. You should have. I was going to. When? She asked sharply. After what? After you were done observing me? After you decided I was good enough? That's not what this was, he said. Then what was it? She demanded. He hesitated. And that hesitation said everything. Amaka let out a small broken laugh. You see, she said. You don't even have an answer. Her shoulders dropped slightly. I feel like I was living inside a lie, she whispered. You weren't, he said quietly. But I was, she insisted, because I didn't have the full truth. She turned away from him again. I built something in my mind, she said. A life, a future. Her voice softened. And now I don't know what any of it means. The pain in her words hung thick in the air. Echa took a step forward. Amaka, don't, she said quickly. He stopped immediately. I need space, she said. The words were quiet but firm. I need to think, she continued. I need to understand what I'm feeling without you trying to explain it away. He nodded slowly. I understand. She shook her head faintly. No, she said. You don't. That truth landed between them. He didn't argue because he knew. She was right. Amaka walked toward the bed and picked up her wrapper. I'll sleep inside, she said. And you? I'll be outside. The roles had reversed. A quiet shift, but meaningful. Emma nodded. All right. He turned and walked toward the door. But before he stepped out, he paused, his back still facing her. This wasn't a game to me, he said. His voice was low, almost lost in the quiet. You mattered, he added. Then he stepped outside. The door closed gently behind him. Amaka stood there alone. Her chest rose and fell unevenly. Tears slipped down her cheeks slowly. She didn't wipe them away. This time she let them fall because this pain was different. It wasn't just about what she had lost. It was about what she had found and didn't know if she could keep. She sat back down on the bed slowly, her body finally giving in to the exhaustion she had been holding back. Her voice came out in a whisper. I don't know who you are anymore. Outside, Emma sat in the darkness, silent, still the same place he had sat every night. But this time, he wasn't guarding something new. He was watching it fall apart. And for the first time in a long time, he felt something he couldn't control. Not power, not certainty, but fear. Because the one thing he hadn't planned for was losing her. Morning came quietly. Too quietly. The kind of morning that didn't rush in with noise or urgency. the kind that slipped gently through the cracks of the door, bringing light into a space that wasn't ready for it. Amaka didn't sleep. Not really. She had closed her eyes. She had lain still, but her mind had refused to rest. Every time she drifted close to sleep, a memory pulled her back. Emma's voice, his confession, his silence, his eyes when she said she needed space. And that word trust kept echoing in her mind over and over again. When she finally sat up, the room felt heavier than usual, the air thicker like it carried everything that had been said and everything that hadn't. She glanced toward the door. It was closed. That meant he was still outside. Something about that made her chest tighten. She stood slowly, adjusting her wrapper, and walked toward the door. Her hand hovered over it for a moment. Just a moment. Then she opened it. Outside, the world looked the same. The same small farm, the same quiet land, the same soft morning light stretching across the soil. But everything felt different. Emma was seated on the wooden bench near the side of the house, still silent, his elbows rested on his knees, his hands loosely clasped together. He looked like he hadn't moved in hours. He looked up when he heard the door. Their eyes met for a second. Neither of them spoke. Then Amaka looked away. "I'll make breakfast," she said. Her voice was neutral, careful, distant. Emma nodded once. "Okay." And just like that, they returned to something that looked like normal, but wasn't. Inside, Amaka moved through the kitchen space slowly. Not with the urgency she once had. Not with the fear of doing something wrong. But not with ease either. Everything felt deliberate, measured. She lit the fire, prepared the food, arranged the table. Each action felt heavier than it should. Outside, Emma stood and walked toward the farm, not to escape, but to give her space, again. That was something she noticed. Even now, even after everything, he still respected her distance. And somehow that made it harder. By the time the food was ready, Amaka stepped outside. "It's done," she said. Emma nodded and walked back toward the house. They sat at the table across from each other, the same place they had shared quiet meals before. But now, the silence between them felt different. It wasn't neutral anymore. It was full. Amaka picked up her spoon slowly, took a bite, chewed, swallowed. She didn't look at him, but she could feel his presence. Steady, waiting, not pushing. And that was what unsettled her the most, because it would have been easier if he had argued, if he had defended himself, if he had tried to convince her. But he didn't. He just waited. After a few moments, he spoke. "I'll need to leave soon." Amaka's hand paused slightly. "Leave?" she repeated. "Yes." Her eyes lifted slowly. "For how long? I don't know yet." Her chest tightened. "To that life?" she asked. He nodded. The words from yesterday echoed in her mind. "They want me to return." She looked down at her plate again. "So, you're going," she said. It wasn't a question. "It's not that simple," he replied. "It sounds simple," she said quietly. Silence followed. Then she spoke again. "You always had this choice, didn't you?" Emma didn't answer immediately, but he didn't deny it either. Amaka let out a slow breath. "That's the difference between us," she said. Her voice wasn't angry now, just honest. "You could choose this life," she continued, gesturing around them. "Or you could choose that one." She looked up at him. "I never had a choice." The truth of that settled heavily between them. "I know," he said. "No." She shook her head slightly. "You understand it, but you don't know it." He accepted that because, again, she was right. Amaka set her spoon down. "I've been thinking," she said. Emma leaned forward slightly, listening about everything. She continued. "About what you said, about what happened." Her fingers tightened slightly against the table, and I keep asking myself one question. She looked at him. "What do I do now?" The vulnerability in that question hit him harder than anything she had said before, because it wasn't anger. It wasn't accusation. It was uncertainty. "I don't have an answer for you," he said quietly. "I know," she replied. Another pause. "But I have to find one," she said. She stood up slowly. "I can't just stay here pretending everything is fine. I'm not asking you to." "I know," she said again. She walked a few steps away, then stopped. "When I was at my aunt's house," she began, her voice soft. Everything was clear. He watched her. "I was nothing. she said. I knew it. I felt it every day. Her chest rose slightly. But here, she turned to face him again. You made me feel like I was something. The words landed deep. And now, she continued, I don't know if that was real or just part of something bigger. I didn't understand. It was real, he said again. She held his gaze. I want to believe that, she said. That was new. Not rejection, not denial, just hesitation. But I don't know how to, she added. The honesty in her voice made something in him shift. I can't force you to believe it, he said. I know. She took a small breath. And I can't ignore how I feel either. Another pause. So I have to choose, she said. Choose what? He asked. She looked at him. Whether I hold on to what we had, her voice softened, or walk away from something, I don't fully understand. The words hung in the air. Heavy, final. Emma stood slowly. And what are you choosing? He asked. Amaka didn't answer immediately because the truth was she didn't know yet. Her heart was pulling her in one direction, her mind in another. One whispered, he lied to you. The other whispered, he cared for you. One said, you were part of a deception. The other said, but the way he treated you was real. She closed her eyes briefly, then opened them again. I don't know, she said honestly. And that was the hardest answer of all because it meant the story wasn't over. Not yet. Emma nodded slowly. That's okay, he said. She looked at him. It is. Yes. A small pause because whatever you decide, his voice lowered slightly. It will be your choice. That word again. Choice. Something she had never truly had until now. Amaka felt something shift inside her. Not clarity, not resolution, but something else. Possibility. And for the first time that scared her more than anything else, because now her life wasn't being decided for her. She had to decide it herself. The day felt longer than it should have. Amaka had spent most of it outside, not working, not thinking clearly, just existing. She walked through the small farm slowly, her fingers brushing lightly against the leaves as she passed. The crops swayed gently in the breeze, alive, growing, steady, uncomplicated, unlike everything inside her. Her mind had been restless since morning, thoughts circling, repeating, arguing with each other. Leave, stay, trust, protect yourself. Every path felt incomplete, every answer felt uncertain. She paused near the edge of the farm, looking out at the stretch of land ahead, the same view she had seen the first day she arrived. But it didn't feel the same anymore. That day she had stepped into this place with fear. Now, she stood in it with confusion, her arms folded loosely across her chest as she let out a slow breath. I wish it was simple, she whispered. But nothing about this was simple, because the truth was she had come here with nothing, and somehow she had found something. Not wealth, not comfort, but something deeper, peace, care, a quiet kind of love she hadn't even realized she was receiving. And now that she knew the truth, she didn't know what to do with it. Her chest tightened slightly. He lied to you. That voice in her mind was sharp, clear, protective, but he also cared for you. That voice was softer, quieter, but just as strong. Amaka closed her eyes briefly. Which one matters more? She asked herself. No answer came. Only silence. The sun began to lower slowly in the sky, painting everything in warm shades of gold and orange. Evening was coming, and with it a decision she could no longer avoid. Her feet moved before her mind fully caught up back toward the house. Each step felt heavier, not because she didn't want to go, but because she knew something had to be said. As she got closer, she saw him. Emma. He was sitting on the same wooden bench near the side of the house, the exact same place he had been that morning. Still quiet, waiting. Her steps slowed. For a moment, she just stood there, watching him. He looked different, not in appearance, but in presence. The calm confidence she had always associated with him was softer now, more human, as if the weight of everything had reached him, too. He didn't notice her immediately, which gave her a moment, just a moment to take him in. The man who had lied to her, the man who had protected her, the man who had confused her, the man who had cared for her. Her chest tightened. Then he looked up. Their eyes met, and just like that, the moment became real. Neither of them spoke. Not at first, because words felt too small, too fragile. Amaka took a few steps forward, slow, careful, until she stood a short distance from him. "I've been thinking," she said finally. Her voice was steady, but soft. Emma nodded slightly. "I thought you might." A faint, almost invisible smile touched her lips. Even now, he didn't push, didn't interrupt, didn't try to control the moment. He just listened. "I've been trying to understand everything," she continued, her fingers intertwined loosely in front of her. "What you did, why you did it, what it means." She paused briefly. "And how I feel about it." He leaned forward slightly, not speaking, just present. Amaka took a breath. "I'm still hurt," she said. The honesty in her voice was clear, unfiltered. "I know," he replied quietly. "I don't think that's going to disappear quickly," she added. "I don't expect it to." She nodded faintly. But she hesitated. That one word shifted everything. Emma's gaze sharpened slightly, but he echoed. Amaka looked at him fully. "But I can't ignore everything else either." Silence. Heavy. "What do you mean?" he asked. She exhaled slowly. "I mean the way you treated me," she said. Her voice softened. "You didn't have to do that." He didn't respond. "You didn't have to respect me," she continued. "You didn't have to give me space. You didn't have to care whether I was tired or not." Her chest rose slightly. "But you did." The words settled between them, and that, she paused. That was real. Something shifted in his expression. Relief. Subtle. "But there I wasn't pretending about that," he said. "I know," she replied. That was new. Not doubt. Not resistance. Recognition. Amaka took another step closer. "I've been asking myself one question all day," she said. He waited. "If I take away the money, the status, the secrets," her voice lowered slightly, "who are you to me?" The question hung in the air. And this time it wasn't about accusation. It was about truth. Emma stood slowly. Now they were closer, almost equal in height, almost equal in presence. "I'm the man who married you," he said. "That's not enough," she replied gently. He nodded. "I'm the man who chose to stay when he didn't have to," he added. Her eyes flickered slightly. "And I'm the man who," he hesitated, then continued, "who didn't want to lose what we had." Her chest tightened. "That's closer," she said softly. A small silence followed. Then she spoke again. "I don't know how to forget what you did," she said. "I'm not asking you to. I don't know how to trust you completely yet. I understand." Another pause. "But I know this," she said. He held her gaze. "I don't want to walk away." The words landed deep. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Emma took a small step forward. Not too close. Just enough. "Are you sure?" he asked. His voice was quiet. Careful. Amaka nodded slowly. "I'm not choosing perfection," she said. Her lips curved faintly. "I'm choosing what felt real." Something in his chest shifted. "And what if I fail you again?" he asked. Her answer came without hesitation. "Then we deal with it then." Simple, honest, unafraid. That was her. That was always her. "No more lies," she added. "Never again," he said immediately. This time there was no hesitation, no pause, just truth. Amaka stepped closer. Now there was almost no space between them. Her voice dropped to a soft whisper. "That's all I need." For a moment they just stood there, not touching, not rushing, just being. Then slowly, carefully, she smiled. Not a white smile, not a dramatic one, just something small, real, and that was enough, because in that moment, they weren't a poor farmer and a billionaire. They weren't a lie and a truth. They were just two people choosing each other. Again, the morning of the second wedding felt different, not because it was louder, not because it was grander, but because this time it meant something. Amaka stood in front of a mirror, a real one, tall, clear, unbroken. For a moment, she didn't move. She simply stared at her reflection, taking in the woman looking back at her. She looked radiant. Her gown was different this time. Not borrowed, not worn, not something she had to be careful with because it didn't belong to her. This one was hers. The fabric flowed softly around her body, perfectly fitted, elegant without being overwhelming. The design was simple but intentional, just like her. Her hair was styled neatly, her makeup soft and glowing. Nothing excessive, nothing forced, just enough to highlight what was already there. She lifted her hands slightly, brushing her fingers along the fabric. A small smile touched her lips. "I didn't imagine it like this," she whispered. But somehow this felt better than anything she could have imagined, because this time she wasn't being given away. She was choosing. A soft knock came at the door. Amaka. It was a gentle voice, warm, kind. "Come in," she said. The door opened and a woman stepped inside, one of the stylists who had been helping her prepare. "You look beautiful," the woman said with a soft smile. Amaka nodded. "Thank you." But her eyes drifted back to the mirror. For a moment her expression softened, not with pride, not with excitement, but with reflection, because she remembered the first wedding, the silence, the whispers, the borrowed gown, the emptiness, the way she had walked into something she didn't understand. Her chest rose slowly. "That girl," she murmured. The stylist tilted her head slightly. "What did you say?" Amaka smiled faintly. "Nothing." But in her mind, she was speaking to that version of herself. The girl who thought she had no choice. The girl who believed her life had already been decided. The girl who sat under the night sky whispering, "I just want a better life." Her eyes softened. "You got it," she whispered under her breath, and not in the way she expected. A soft call came from outside. "They're ready." Amaka's heart skipped slightly. This was it. Not fear, not pressure, just a moment. She took a deep breath, then another, then turned away from the mirror and walked out. The setting was simple, but beautiful. Not an extravagant hall, not something overwhelming, but open land, fresh air, nature, the farm decorated lightly with flowers and soft fabrics, arranged with care and intention. People had gathered more than the first time, not just curious neighbors, but people who wanted to be there. Some from the village, some from the city. Two worlds meeting, and at the center of it all, Emma. He stood waiting, dressed in a tailored suit this time, clean, sharp, effortless. But despite everything, despite the wealth, the status, the presence, there was something about him that hadn't changed. The way he stood, the way he looked, the quiet steadiness in his eyes. He wasn't the billionaire in that moment, he was just him. And when he saw her, everything else faded. Amaka's steps slowed slightly as she walked toward him, not out of fear, but because she wanted to feel this moment fully. Every step, every breath, every heartbeat, their eyes met, and just like that, the noise disappeared. No crowd, no decorations, no expectations, just them. She reached him. They stood facing each other, closer than they had ever been. "Hi," she said softly. A small smile touched his lips. "Hi." Simple, familiar, real. The officiant began to speak, words about union, commitment, choice. But this time Amaka heard them because this time they mattered. "Do you choose this man?" The question came and Amaka didn't hesitate. "I do." Her voice was clear, steady, certain. No pressure, no force, just choice. "And do you choose this woman?" Emma's answer came just as easily. "I do." And just like that, it was done. But this time, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a beginning. The celebration that followed was light, joyful, alive. Laughter filled the air. Music played softly. People moved freely. Amaka stood among them, but she wasn't overwhelmed. She wasn't trying to belong because she already did. Emma found her after a while. "You're quiet," he said. She smiled slightly. "I'm taking it all in." He nodded. "Does it feel real?" She looked around, then back at him. "Yes," she said. A small pause. "Now it does." Later, as the sun began to set, the crowd thinned, the noise softened. Amaka found herself standing at the edge of the farm again, the same place she had stood days ago, lost in thought. But this time, she wasn't lost. She was grounded. Emma joined her quietly. "Running away from your own wedding?" he teased lightly. She laughed softly. "Just thinking about." She looked out at the land. "Everything." Pause. "Do you regret it?" he asked. The question was quiet, careful. She turned to him. "No." No hesitation. "No," she repeated. Amaka looked toward the glowing horizon. her expression peaceful. "I didn't get the life I imagined," she said. The man beside her tensed, but she continued before fear could settle between them. "I found something better, something real." A comfortable silence followed. Amaka stepped closer and smiled. "I used to believe being rich meant having everything. And now?" he asked. "Now I understand that wealth can fill a house and still leave a heart empty. You had money, influence, and every comfort people dream about, yet you came here searching for something none of it could give you." He did not deny it. "And I once believed I had nothing," Amaka continued, placing a hand over her heart. "But now, somehow, I feel richer than I ever imagined." Her words reached him because they were simple and true. Amaka had not chosen him for his fortune, and he had not loved her because she needed rescuing. They had chosen each other after learning who they truly were. As the sun disappeared beyond the village, Amaka rested her head against his shoulder, not from dependence, but from trust. He remained beside her, no longer searching. He had found what wealth, power, and status had never given him: a love that was honest, peaceful, and freely chosen. Amaka had begun as an orphan, treated like a servant in the only home she knew. She had endured cruelty, poverty, and years of believing she was unwanted. But she did not become whole because a wealthy man entered her life. She became whole when she reclaimed her voice, recognized her worth, and chose a future built on dignity. The girl who once believed she had nothing finally understood the truth. She had always carried everything she needed within her.